Hey everyone, I'm Laura.
And I'm Jill.
And we are the hosts of Crime Divers podcast. We are Scottish sisters who tell each other true crime cases the other hasn't heard of.
New episodes are released every Tuesday and you can find us on your favourite podcast platform.
So what are you waiting for? Grab your wetsuit and join us as we dive into the world of true crime.
But remember, watch out for those sharks!
On today's episode, we will get into the most dangerous game killings, if you can call them that, the girl that got away, the cops that finally looked at Robert as a killer, and the fuck-ups that led to his capture on episode 2 of Robert Hansen. I'm Kevin Young.
I'm Dan Horgan.
And this is Torture.
Featuring Crazy Bobby.
Crazy Bob. I was talking to my wife the other when I was listening to his interviews that we'll get to in a little bit, and I was kind of making fun of him, but I was doing a stutter, and she's like, "You shouldn't make fun of people who stutter." I was like, "No, I know I'm not making fun of people that stutter. I'm making fun of Robert fucking Hansen. He just happened to have a stutter, so yeah. I won't do any stuttering, but still, I don't know. I feel like if somebody stutters, but he kills 17 women and rapes 30 plus, I think you're allowed to make fun of his stutter. Myself.
And him as a person, yeah.
Yeah.
Not necessarily the fact of the... I'm trying to think of the diplomatic way of saying it, kind of like, it's not making fun of a stutter, it's making fun of him, who happens to be a person who stutters. And it is a defining feature that you can pick on. You know?
Yeah. Very defining. It's like if somebody has a Southern accent, a Southern American accent. Just because I'm, they kill however many people. I feel like you can do a Southern accent and make fun of them and not make fun of everybody who has a Southern accent. We make fun of Hitler all the time with horrible German accents. That doesn't mean I make fun of everybody that's German.
That's true, yeah. That was the worst one. I don't even put that in. Edit that shit.
That's going to be the name of the episode. Okay, so when we last left Robert, he had just gotten himself a plane and was robbing secluded cabins and ramping up his murder spree.
Sounds like Grand Theft Auto.
Yes.
So it does. Just got myself a plane, ramping up my murder spree.
So in May of 1982, Robert met 23-year-old Sue Luna. It seems like she might have been the first of his, quote, hunting murders. Some feel like it may have been Mally Larson. There's really no way of knowing. Now, to be honest, there's a lot of people that felt like Robert never actually hunted these women. Last episode, we talked about how there's a good chance that a lot of stuff that is in the book or a lot of stuff that's in the ID channel docuseries and the movies and everything is kind of dramatized, amped up a little bit.
I can tell you exactly what happened. His truck got stuck. His truck got stuck. Again.
His truck got...
They ran away. Again. He ran after them. Again.
By now he's taking them out in his plane. So maybe his plane got stuck and they had to help
him. His plane got stuck in the mud.
Plane got stuck in the mud.
Yeah. Here, help me get his plane out of the mud here.
So, okay. He usually hunted with a crossbow, not a gun. That is an argument. Be like, well, he didn't hunt with a gun. He hunted with a crossbow mostly. Okay. Well, there were some people that looked at the photos that he sent, because back then when you wanted for Pope and Young's, the records that he had, you'd send in photos of your kill. Some people, other hunters had noticed that, like the ram he had sent in, that he got 12th biggest ram or whatever the fuck it was. They noticed that it had a bullet hole in one of its horns. like a chip from a bullet in one of its horns. So the question of did he really kill all these animals with a bow and arrow kind of comes up. I don't know, but it was worth, contemplating. They weren't found like deep in the forest. The bodies and the casings were found out in the open. So that kind of disputes the whole hunting thing. There were no blood trails from where they got shot and then ran into the forest. There were no drag marks on the ground or wherever from where he would have dragged them back to where they were buried. Personally, I think it was like a mini game. I think he used a gun instead of an arrow because he didn't want to take the chance of them getting away. They didn't make it that far into the forest because he was too worried about someone finding a naked woman running through the woods, tied up, and screaming about a crazy person chasing her.
Yeah.
I think these hunts lasted just long enough to get him hard from, their terror, and then he ended it. And since it probably didn't take him all that long to get hard, he ended it quickly. But that's just me.
Probably a case of, the usual thing of telling somebody to run.
Yeah.
And then
run.
You see in movies all the time, and and then literally as soon as they think they might have a chance.
Yep. But it seemed like either way is when he was done with his fun, that's when they died. As long as he was enjoying himself, they were alive. But once he stopped enjoying himself, then I don't need you anymore.
Yeah.
You're dead. Yeah. So he flew Luna to the Knik River, which in this area of the river you can only get there by boat or plane. This area you can't really drive out to. He stripped her down. He says he made her run, and when he was done, he shot her. Just like what a lot of people thought he did. So in January of 1983, the body of a young woman was found at Horseshoe Lake near Anchorage. Now, her body stayed unidentified for 37 years. She was only known as Horseshoe Harriet because she was found near Horseshoe Lake. Until October of 2021, when forensic genealogy finally provided a name, Robin Pelkey. And she was only 19 when she was killed. 37 fucking years.
That's
and
nuts.
you're known as Horseshoe Harriet.
Horseshoe Harriet. Another classic D&D name. Coming up.
April of 1983, he murdered Delynn Frey, who was also found at the Knik River. That same month, 21-year-old Paula Goulding went missing. Her body was also found on the banks of the Knik River. The same type of casings was found near her body as what was found at Sherry Morrow's gravesite. But she was killed with a single gunshot to the heart. The story goes, she tried to run. He got her. She was all, wrapped up, couldn't see where she was going. Set her down. She sat there crying and screaming for him to not kill her. He got bored of listening to her scream, shot her in the heart.
As you do.
Yeah, you're not fun to play with anymore, so now you have to die.
Yeah, I'm kind of starting to see a thing here where I'm not sure either how much I believe the whole chasing them through the woods thing, if that's because are they all really that stupid that they run blindfolded? You know what I mean? Like there seems to be a thing with him having the blindfolded and them running and stuff like that. And it's just kind of like I don't know if that's, to me personally, I don't know. I kind of feel like that might be him trying to, because he's the one stating it. You know what I mean? I'm assuming that it's all can only be based purely on what he has said or what the evidence they found based on the bodies that they found. Like, so they found the body with the skull, probably had the yoke tied around. He could have tied around afterwards. As just him trying to kind of, let's say, make it out as if women are idiots because he looks down on them. Because they're all...
It's a good possibility.
Sluts and stuff, yeah.
Yeah, that's a good possibility.
Or they were idiots and they just didn't realise, oh, I have my hands here, I can just take this thing off. Maybe you're right. Just
Well,
in sheer
I think
fear.
in
They didn't
a
think of it.
moment of pure terror, you just go. Like in a moment of pure
Yeah,
terror,
but at the
you
same
just
time,
go.
at the same time, though, your natural instinct to I can't see would be I need to make myself see, because that's the most terrifying part. Surely is that not being able to see, and if you have a means and ways of.
And the ones that did run, he shot in the back to stop them. So all these ones that he weren't shot in the back, that he's like, oh well, they took off the headband still on, but I caught up to them and all this stuff. More than likely, that didn't happen. More than likely, you made them terrified for their lives, and then when you were done, getting your jollies off of it, you just killed them. They had nowhere to go.
Just
they had
shot
nothing.
them.
They didn't know. They couldn't.
Yeah.
So now we come to Cindy Paulson. Now, Cindy Paulson was 17 years old when Robert Hansen pulled up next to her in his car in downtown Anchorage. He offered her $200 to perform oral sex. She accepted, climbed into the front seat. Now, that would have been about $570 today. So he's not playing with chump change. He's offering a lot of money. Now, whether or not he has any of this money, I don't know. But he's offering a lot of money.
Big money business owner.
Yeah, I mean, it's true. He does have a business.
Sells a lot of donuts.
Yeah. And he was a well-respected member of the community, so I imagine it was a pretty successful business. So the seemingly shy man suggested that they go to a nearby car park to not arouse suspicion. Cindy agreed. Once they were finished, Robert Hansen pulled her head back, pushed a gun in her face, and he said he wouldn't hurt her as long as she did what he said. Then he took her to his home, dragged her out of the car. Now, so you were talking about how you don't know if he's making it up or if they were just really stupid. Cindy was by no account stupid. She went into pure survival mode, and she started making mental notes of everything she saw, including the color of the house. He took her downstairs. He sexually assaulted her. When he was done, he chained her by the neck to an eye bolt in a beam in the basement, and then he took a nap. Well, while he was sleeping, she memorized as much of the basement as she could, hunting trophies, animal heads on the wall, games like I think he had a foosball table, clothing scattered around the home. I mean, every fucking thing that she could memorize, she memorized. Just in case she was able to get away. Now, hours later, Bob woke up, released her from the shackles, told her to go to the bathroom and get herself cleaned up, and he wanted to take her out to his cabin and after that, he promised to let her go. He told her that they could only get to the cabin by air. He had his plane ready. So the pair drove to Merrill Field Airport. Now, as Bob was getting the aircraft ready for takeoff, Cindy escaped. She ran from the car, and Robert chased after her. But a security guard was nearby, and he saw what was going on. So he slowed to a walk, got back in his car, and drove home to take out the eye bolt and fill in the hole. He kind of had an idea what might be coming. Cindy, meanwhile, half naked, barefoot, and handcuffed, ran down 6th Avenue and tried to flag down a vehicle. She managed to jump into a truck and asked the driver, Robert Yunt, to take her to a motel rather than the police station. He wanted to take her straight to the police. She's like, no. Take me to a motel. So he ends up taking her to the Mush Inn. It's a hell of...
What a name. What's happening there? Ain't mush happening here.
She immediately found a payphone. He immediately found a payphone and called the police. She called her pimp, who was told... Yeah, and she told him the entire story, and he had a gun and went to the airport to find Hansen, because he was going to kill him himself. He was just going to go, so fuck it, kill him, and get it over with. Hansen was gone by then.
I'd like to see that movie, though. That'd be pimp
That
goes
would be
off
the
on a
best. Yeah,
murderous
this is the pimp
rampage.
shows up. Pimp shows with a big furry. It looks like Kramer from that episode of Seinfeld where he's got the cane, he's got the big furry coat, shows up. Anyway, when the police arrived at her room, Officer Greg Baker unlocked her handcuffs with a master key, and Cindy claimed, and as Cindy calmed down, she told her this whole fucking story. And of course, the officers weren't sure if they could believe her. She was an underage sex worker, and they thought that she made it all up due to a banned transaction with a client.
Mm.
Yeah. But she described her attacker in finite detail, his acne scars, his crooked teeth, how he spoke with a stutter, the kind of plane he owned, the car he drove, the house she was taken to. There was so much detail to Cindy's story, she thought they would have to believe her. Now, Greg Baker took her to the hospital for a checkup and a rape kit, and the rape kit shows that she was severely sexually assaulted, by the way. On the way, they drove past the airfield that Cindy had escaped from, and as they drove, a plane took off. Cindy told the officers that it belonged to the man they were looking for. Now, that plane actually wasn't Hansen's, but while they're at the airfield, they found the right plane, which was in Hansen's name.
Mm-hmm.
When the police arrived at Hansen's home after they had taken her to the hospital, they realized that Cindy's description was accurate down to the smallest detail. They knocked on the door, the blue house, and a man, Cindy described, greeted them. Hansen had an alibi and told police that he had spent the first part of their day with his friend working on a new seat for his plane. So I got a little bit of an interview here with him describing how the first time he actually met Cindy.
Okay, she was standing there, and I was driving down the street, and she waved a little bit and so forth, and I pulled up there and talked with her. And it was just usual chit chat, asking, the guy in the car and asked how I was doing and so forth, and was I looking for a good time and so forth. I chatted there with a little bit, and made an agreement with her. That I was going to see her sometime. I didn't. It was I couldn't see her that night because it was during the week.
So that's him explaining the first time he was wanting to meet with Cindy when all this came around about what she had said had happened. He tells them that he's with a friend, neighbor, working on a new seat for his plane, and then that he goes to another friend's house to plan a fishing trip. And we got a little bit of that interview too, where he's explaining exactly what he's doing with his friend.
Then on the night when this, I guess, really began, I met her uptown on the Saturday where this come about. I was at a friend of mine's house, John Summerall, and we repaired, modified a seat in my airplane so that it would tip forward so the stuff could be loaded in the back of the airplane easier. With putting a hinge in the back tube though. And I went to his house about, it would be strictly a guess, but about 5:30, 6 o'clock. And had supper with John and his wife. And then it's quite a process to get it right. And we were working on it till approximately 11:30, 12 o'clock.
So he's got an alibi, but we know that he wasn't there. And here's the thing. His friends corroborated his alibi. And all three of these men were well-respected men in the community.
You'd have to wonder why. Like,
their stories, so their stories obviously didn't match up with hers. They would later say that they claimed the reason they lied for him was because they thought that he just needed out of a sticky situation with a woman, not that he had tried to murder someone. So bros before hoes,
Yeah.
They had no idea what he had. They were just like, they said, hey, was Robert with you on this night? And they're thinking, oh, well.
He's after cheating on his wife. And
yeah. So this keeps him. So even though she was able to immediately pick him out of a lineup, tell them everything there was to know about the inside of his house, about his car, about his plane, all this shit, still, he had an alibi, and he wasn't the teenage sex worker. So there wasn't a whole lot they could do. And Bob was so sure that he'd be found innocent by everybody that he even allowed the police to search his property and his car, even though it was the exact same make and model that Cindy has described, including specific discarded trash on the floor of the vehicle. She's even able to tell them the wrappers of food and shit that were on the floor of the vehicle, and it was still there. But again, it's just, well, I don't know, she must have been in my vehicle. I tried to meet up with her at one point before, and we couldn't meet up, so she must have just seen what was in my vehicle then. So
Yeah, so the whole thing, it kind of just basically shows that she could have been there, but not necessarily that what happened, as she says happened.
Yeah, she can prove that at some point she was in his car, and at some point she was at his house, but she can't prove that it was on that night or that he was trying to kidnap her and attack her. Yeah. Her description of the inside of the basement was accurate, but the issue the police had was there wasn't any evidence alluding to the abduction. And they couldn't find the gun that she had described being held to her head. So they decided to have Cindy take a polygraph. But she refused. She said, if you're not going to believe me, with all the shit I've given you, if you're not going to believe me, I'm done. Fuck it. I'm out. So you might be wondering, okay, well, I understand if he was some upstanding citizen and never had a record or anything, then you'd be like, okay, maybe it's kind of hard to believe her over him because he's, so squeaky clean, but he wasn't squeaky clean. He had a very extensive criminal record. So what happened with that?
Right down to that excruciating details of his description. It's like everything keeps coming up saying there's this exact guy matches this exact description who's done this exact thing. Yeah. And everybody's just kind of like, Argh.
Yeah, he'd been arrested multiple times for shoplifting and robbery. He had been arrested for assault. He went to prison, the kidnapping, all that shit. So why didn't they put those all together? Well, apparently, the police department was in the process of transferring the records to a new computer system. So when they looked up Robert Hansen, nothing came up. As far as they were concerned, he had no record at all. So they closed the investigation. But before the Anchorage police put it to bed, it was sent to the Alaskan state troopers, where it landed on the desk of Lyle Hogsvin, the same detective that was working on the Sherry Morrow case. So now he's got two of his cases. So he started looking into Hansen, specifically his flying. Well, Hansen never gave the tower at Merrill Field his actual registration number on his plane, so they didn't know where he was going. He painted the registration number on his plane so small that they couldn't read it when he was in the air. And when they would call and be like, whatever plane, what's your registration number, where you're going, he would give them the registration number of a different plane. And since it's, the early 80s, they'd just be like, okay.
Yeah.
Whatever. And he didn't have a license, so they couldn't track that down because he was prescribed lithium years earlier, and they won't give him a license because he's supposed to be on lithium. So he's flying around just under the radar.
The sort of thing you couldn't get away with nowadays.
No, not even a little. 90% of these motherfuckers that we'll talk about, you can't get away with any of this shit now.
Yeah.
It's just, yeah.
Hey, this is Jeff.
And Richard.
And Michael from Mount Rushmore.
But not the actual Mount Rushmore, like the monument, because that'd be weird. No, we mean the Mount Rushmore podcast.
Every week, Richard and I debate what belongs on the Mount Rushmore of any topic. It might be the Mount Rushmore of fake Elvises, or something weighty and important.
Like the Mount Rushmore of jackets.
And when they're done, I judge them and decide whose choices were right and mainly whose choices were wrong.
With more than 100 episodes of nonsense, you'll find a topic that, you actually care about.
Especially if you feel strongly about jackets.
Or grandmothers.
Oh, yeah, or IKEA.
Canadians.
See, listen, this is what I have to deal with. Check us out wherever you find your favorite podcasts, or check us out at mtrushmore.com.
It wasn't long before things started to add up against Hansen, though, especially when they found Paula Goulding's body with the same bullet cases near the body of Sherry Morrow. Enter Glenn Flothy. Now, he is the one that Nick Cage plays in on Frozen Ground. He's the first person to put this whole thing together. He's kind of the super cop in all this. He takes all the missing sex workers, how they're all so alike, with the exception of Lisa Futrell. They were all in their late teens, early 20s, about the same height, busty, which is something that Butcher Baker, they use that word a lot, busty. I mean, a lot. Yeah. They had made plans to meet with someone, offering them money, and then went missing afterwards. So Flothy and Hogsman started working together, and when the records transfer was finally over, they could finally see Hansen's criminal background. He knew Robert Hansen was the man they were looking for. Robert had a plane. He had access to the sites where the bodies were found. Then, he had access to the victims. They're all sex workers.
Mm-hmm.
Third, he was a hunter, so he could track these women once they were let go and shoot them down. Again, that probably didn't even happen. And then on top of all that, he had a criminal record of sexual assault and kidnapping. So all the puzzle pieces were coming together.
That, and he was known as Old Crazy Bob.
Old Crazy Bob. Old Dimple Dick.
Yeah, Old Dimple Dick Bob.
So the state troopers just literally had to take all the puzzle pieces and put them together. So they really started to keep an eye on old Bob. And a search warrant was requested for Hansen's property. But the district attorney denied it. Twice. For no reason that I can really see.
Yeah.
Because it looked...
It's the usual thing probably with old Bob. He's probably some stupid little thing. They're like, no, it's okay. Forget about it. He's cool.
So when that didn't work, Flothy contacted the FBI. He was sent to the Behavioral Science Unit, and John Douglas was assigned to the case. Now, if you know anything about serial killers and all that shit, then you will know the name John Douglas because he is best known for his work depicted in the series Mindhunter on Netflix. Douglas wasn't told anything about the man they suspected, but was given the information about the 3 recovered bodies. From here, he was able to create a criminal psychological profile of the man he believed was responsible for the murders. Now, tell me how spot on this was. He said the killer would be around 40 years old, held low self-esteem due to a history of rejection. He would be an intelligent and well-respected member of the community he lived in. He would have been involved in shoplifting and arson at some point during his life. He would be an experienced hunter and would keep trophies from his victims. He would probably be married, and his wife would be religious and have no idea of her husband's crimes.
100%. The only thing they're missing was the name Bob.
Oh, he probably has some type of stutter or some other type of speech impediment of some sort, which he had a horrible stutter.
Yeah.
So, with that from the FBI, and the fact that the tire marks found outside all these cabins that had been broken into matched the tires on his plane, and his was the only plane to have those kinds of tires, and Sidney's testimony, they were finally able to secure a search warrant for his property, plane, and car. So the 27th of October, 1983, Floethy and his team searched Hansen's property. His wife, Darla, and his children, and his mother were all at the home when they showed up. They had no idea why the police were there, and they were shocked when they found out. Darla was completely in the black about this. She had no idea any of this was happening.
Again, how did he have the time?
Again, yeah. But they spent so much time apart from each other. She was always spending time with her family, with the kids, and they hardly ever saw each other. So, yeah. And she was extremely religious, like Douglas had said. And, honestly, they should have got a divorce long ago, but she was one of these, didn't, believe in divorce. You're married, you work through it. But they didn't spend any time together. So she found out that her husband was, on the kick for all these fucking murders. And even after he was arrested for theft and in prison on rape charges, she stood by him. So, she was devoted, I guess.
No wonder. Again, religion. Tut.
So the family left the house and let the officers do what they needed to do. They were sure that they weren't going to find anything, but it wasn't long before they did. Behind the headboard of Robert and Darla's bed, they found an aviation map. It had some writing on it. It was a map of Anchorage, and it had 24 crosses scribbled on it. Police quickly realized that 4 of those crosses where bodies had been discovered. Now, another officer, and why would you keep that?
I don't know.
I mean, so he claims he has a little cabin out where he's killing these women at. Why wouldn't you keep it out of the cabin? Because if they find the cabin, then they're going to realize
it's not close enough to him at all times, though, to revel in.
I suppose. That's
it might have just been all the active quests he had open at the time, though.
All the side quests.
Yeah, that he just hasn't gotten around to doing yet.
Yeah. Anyway, they found this map, had all these crosses on it. And then another officer, Officer Kesnick, went into the attic to see what he could find up there. After looking around for a long time, he pulled out some insulation and some Christmas decorations, and eventually he found what he was looking for. Multiple firearms hidden in the back of the attic, including the gun that Cindy described, and a .223 Ruger Mini 14. Plus a bag of jewelry which contained a golden arrowhead necklace.
Boom!
Yep. Oh, and it gets better. So while the cops were at the home, a neighbor, specifically the wife of the neighbor that had lied to the police about Hansen's whereabouts the night of Cindy Paulson's kidnapping, she came over and asked what was going on. One of the troopers told her that it looked like Robert Hansen was going to be booked for murder, and the woman spilled the beans on how her husband never hung out with Robert, and that he was definitely not with him that evening, virtually destroying the alibi Hansen had for that night. Yeah.
Game over.
So, February 1984, Hansen was arrested at his bakery while he's making the really horrible flowers. Look, they were at the bakery before him. He got there late. When he pulled up, they got out of the car, grabbed him, took him to the police station. He was charged with kidnapping, assault, theft, insurance fraud. Again, Floathy was really going for this insurance fraud thing. I don't talk about it a whole lot, but in the book, I mean, he talks about it a lot, about how really wanted to get him for insurance fraud.
Never mind all the murders and stuff. Yeah, it's just get for that.
He kills all those women, but insurance free. Got that money. Money's more important. You know that. Now, when questioned about the assault, he didn't deny being with the women, but he told the police that it was all consensual and he didn't rape them. He stated the women were just enacting revenge because they altered their prices after sex and he wouldn't pay. He actually goes on to say, well, you can't rape a prostitute, can you?
Dear Lord.
Yeah. And Floathy's like, in my state you can. Yeah.
Yeah.
So Floathy didn't buy any of it. The neighbor that gave the alibi for Cindy Paulson incident, whose wife had refuted, finally went down to the police station, told them that he had lied. He didn't hang out with Hansen, and he wasn't with him that night. It doesn't say if he got any, if there were any repercussions for lying to the police or not, but probably should have been. But I doubt that there were.
Most likely not. You never know. It just probably wasn't important enough, really, to kind of go on record in any way, shape, or form for us to look at. So, has to have been, that completely held up an entire possibility of arresting somebody for multiple murders. It has to have been something to happen.
Yeah. So, plus, now the forensics returned with a match between the crime scene bullets and Hansen's rifle found at the house. Hansen and his lawyer began to bargain a plea deal. He agreed to plead guilty to 4 murders, Ecletna Annie, Joanna Messina, Paula Goulding, and Sherry Morrow, and agreed to give the investigators further information about other victims who were crosses on his aviation map. His lawyer said he would plead guilty as long as he didn't stay in Alaskan prison and that his family was left alone and not attached to him or his crimes. So maybe the one last good thing that he did is keep my family out of it. I believe he didn't want to be in Alaska prison because Alaska had the death penalty at the time.
Right.
And he would have gotten it if he would have stayed there. They took him out to all the spots where the bodies apparently were by helicopter. Now he bound through the woods, got to the graves, and would try to dig through the ground with his hands like a dog almost. But the ground was too frozen. It was frozen ground. He said
I see what you did there.
So they would mark the area of where he said they were, and they'd come back when everything thawed out. And they found that Hansen led them to the exact spot of the graves every time, and they were able to get to the bodies with just one hole at each location.
That's pretty messed up.
Yeah. I mean, that of all the things to have a photographic memory about.
Yeah.
I know where all these women are buried.
Well, that being said, I'm sure if you did something like that, you would remember it in extreme detail. Maybe.
Probably the first couple, but after a while, it would just be another thing. You remember you remember the first place you had sex, but you don't remember 99% of the rest of them, depending on how many times you've had sex. So
if it's just the once, then
it was just the once, then you're good. If you kill one person, you remember where, but if you kill 17, you probably end up forgetting at some point. But he didn't.
Point.
So the victims were Megan Emmerich. She was 17. Hansen denied killing her, but there was an X on his map where her body was found. So Mary Thill, age 22. Again, Hansen denied killing her. And again, there was an X on his map where her body was found. Horseshoe Harriet, otherwise known as Robin Pelkey. Hansen helped find her body. Aklutna Annie, who we never find out her name. Roxanne Eastland. Hansen finally confesses to killing her, but they were not able to find her body. Joanna Messina, Lisa Frutel. Hansen helped with the location of her body. Sherry Morrow. Andrea Altry. Hansen confessed to killing her, but her body was not located. More than likely, most of these bodies that weren't located were probably dug up by animals and carried away, I'm thinking. Yeah. Sue Luna, Hansen helped find her body. Delynn Frey, Paula Goulding. Molly Larson, age 28, was found on the 24th of April, 1984. Hansen helped locate her body. Teresa Watson, found 26th of April, 1984. Hansen, again, helped find her body. Angela Ferdern, 24, found same day as Teresa Watson. Tamara Pedersen, age 20, found just a few days later. And Celia Van Zanten, age 17, found Christmas Day. Hansen denied killing her, but again, the MO fits perfectly. The speaker wire, the time, the place, it's all too perfect for it to not have been him. But for some reason, I think he feels guilty about that one. Maybe it's because he didn't actively kill her. She got away. She still died, but it wasn't
technically
him.
he's telling the truth in that sense. That's probably the way he's justifying it.
Yeah, and I think maybe he's a little. I think he maybe as this great hunter, he's a little embarrassed that she got away from him, and because that was one of the things that you find out about him that he loved to do. He loved to track his prey. What he was hunting, he loved to get an animal and then track it and find it. Right. And I think the fact that he wasn't able to track her, I think was a huge hit to his ego. And that's why he would never admit to it. But that's just me. On the 27th of February, 1984, after pleading guilty to the murder of 4 women, confessing to the murder of 17 women, and the rape of 30 women, Robert Hansen was sentenced to 461 years plus life in prison with no chance of parole by a jury of his peers. He was transferred to Lewisburg, Pennsylvania. 4 years later, he was returned to Alaska to the Spring Creek Correctional Center, where he remained until he died in Alaska Regional Hospital August 21st, 2014, due to natural causes at the age of 75. And that is the story of Dipple Dick Robert Hansen.
Or old Crazy Bob.
Old Crazy Bob. So, the
Glad
torture...
to see he's dead.
Yes. I hate to see that he got to live to 75 and die of natural causes, though. Because from what I've heard from other podcasts is that he actually... got along pretty well in prison. He wanted to be a writer, but that didn't work out. He ended up becoming a barber, which I don't know why he wouldn't. I don't know why he wouldn't work in the kitchen,
or why anybody let him near sharp objects. But
that's true. But he ended up becoming a barber, and all the other inmates actually really liked him. Said he was a nice guy and quiet.
All right. Being honest, I don't think he'd be the most formidable person in there. You know what I mean? I'd say he probably had to make nicey nice or I'm assuming he's in like a maximum security prison, so you'd have kind of the worst of the worst. Yeah, he's not some 6'10", 380-pound Ed Kemper walking through there, or Jeffrey Dahmer. Jeffrey Dahmer was like 6'1", like 205 of just pure muscle. I mean, he was like 5'8". Below average, according to Wikipedia, he's 5'6".
5'6". Okay,
So
he was. Yeah, he was not a large person. And the whole killing women thing doesn't go over real well in prison. So
you really wish they kept him alive to serve all 461 years.
Just keep shocking him.
Yeah.
cut a Futurama in, cut off his head, put it in a little thing. So if any of you are wondering exactly where the torture aspect comes from, it's obviously mostly psychological. Rape and tying up is obviously torture, but being stripped naked and forced to run for your life.
I was going to say, yeah, everything that happened to Cindy Paulson, basically.
Yeah, pretty much everything that happened to all the women that he would talk about how, oh, well, I did this, I did,
And my
that's
horrific
torture.
attempt at a German accent was also torturous. So.
That was bad, yes.
Yeah. But nobody else is going to hear that because you're going to edit that out.
Huh? That's the name of the episode, Bad German Accent.
The worst German accent.
And now there's 2.
Yeah.
Oh, fuck. All right, so a hint for our next episode. We're actually going to go back to the torture devices, and the weight might give you a splitting headache. Ooh.
Marriage again.
Yeah.
I was like these little hints because I don't even know what's coming up. So it makes me
I
think,
usually tell after we get off here, not get off, after we get off here, I usually tell him, and so he can do what he needs to do. I'd like to thank the Crime Divers podcast for starting off the show, and Mount Rushmore podcast for giving us our little break in the middle. I have links to both of those shows in our show notes. Make sure you go check them out. All right, so you can follow us on Twitter, Instagram at TorturePod. If you like, contact us, email us, torturepod@gmail.com. Again,
I'm gonna have to cover my my own little bit here that I always end up doing, which is the movie popular culture side of things.
Yes, go ahead, please.
So obviously the extremely well renowned and Oscar winning film The Frozen Ground is inspired by everything that happened with Robert Hansen with what's his name again, John Cusack, the handsome John Cusack playing the extremely ugly Robert Hansen.
It should have been Steve Buscemi.
I think Steve Buscemi is too ugly to play Robert Hansen. I think, it's horrific. But obviously, I'm surprised there's not more episodes of Criminal Minds based around. The first thing I thought of when I watched the FBI story thing that you'd sent me about this, was Criminal Minds and the BAU thing and all this, a few episodes of I don't know if you ever watched Cold Case. I used to watch an awful lot of that years ago.
Yeah, I've seen a few episodes of Cold Case.
Yeah, I'm more likely
I don't know
to
if I've
see.
ever seen his.
Chances are I probably did, but don't remember it. All right, but
yeah, that's good.
Yeah, and one of my favorite TV shows as well, Dexter.
Yeah.
So it's Kurt Caldwell, who, if anybody wants to Google him, played by Clancy Brown, who you'd recognise as soon as you Google him, was inspired by him. So, yeah, that's about as much interesting ones as I can see there. I'm going to have to watch Frozen Ground because I made that comment about it and I haven't even seen it as far as I'm aware.
It's supposed to be horrible. I haven't
well,
seen
it has
a
star-studded cast though. Nicolas Cage, John Cusack, 50 Cent, and Vanessa Hudgens. So
you know what? Everybody gives him shit. I like Nicolas Cage. I like the majority of his movies. I don't know if you've Raising Arizona is.
I like Nick, right? I do like him.
Nick.
Yeah,
I like John Cusack
horrific,
too.
But so do I. I love Grosse Pointe Blank. So but that the weight of unbearable talent or unbearable weight of talent, whatever. What's that new Nick Cage movie? I'm dying to see that.
The weight of unbearable. It's one of those. I haven't seen it. I'll tell you now what
it is. It's the unbearable weight of massive talent. Called. Yeah. I'm dying.
And he
to
plays
see
himself.
Plays himself basically. Yeah. And
it's supposed to be outstanding.
Yeah.
And I want to see it.
Look,
really
Pig was fantastic.
I never got around to watching that. It hit too close to home to our D&D.
Yeah, it is true. Yeah, but no, it's fantastic for him. I thought it was great. Now I'd say, I know we're talking about stuff that is completely unrelated now to Robert Hansen.
Oh, that's all right.
But I definitely like to look at more stuff to do with it because an awful lot of the interesting stuff wasn't covered in that FBI Files episode. They kind of just dove into it, like
they kind of just get to the meat of it, and they skip all the juicy sides.
Yeah, like it starts with Paulson to escape, and then it goes from there, and it's like none of this the lead up to it, like what I mean. There's none of the background stuff whatsoever, and there's not a single thing to do with insurance fraud, which upset me quite a lot. So
That's all you got is plane.
Yeah,
Not
exactly.
For the, not for
I
the
was wondering.
insurance fraud, no plane.
When I was watching it, I was wondering about all that. I was kind of like, right, hold on a minute. So like, he has a plane. He's baking the whole time. He has a wife and kids. And yeah, he has time to be doing all this shit and all. You know what I mean? It's straight away. It's like all these things I was thinking of. So I would have liked an explanation about that damn plane.
Yeah.
Now I know.
And I mean, you don't want to envy anybody like him, but it's like, man, I need to barter out my time better. If he can do all that, I should be able to do a lot more stuff than what I'm doing.
Exactly.
But
yeah.
Anyway.
That's all I got.
If you want to get a hold of us, please email Dan. He really wants some emails. torturepod@gmail.com.
Yeah, about people and things we should cover.
I got a lot of stuff for us.
Yeah, the more insurance fraud, the better.
Yeah. All right, fuck. Well, I guess that's it. We'll talk to you guys next time, all right?
Bye-bye.